Hello, welcome to the Zero Ends channel. Please like and subscribe. Please enjoy our live.
Zero ends. Welcome, welcome to another session, another stream here on the Zero Ends channel. And today, we're going to talk about ways, remedies, solutions to an uncertain world we live in when it comes to health and how to combat this phenomenon we have, what we call the pharmaceutical problem, I like to call it. As you know, through data, from what I can remember, and I said what I can remember, and y'all see the thumbnail. The leading cause of death here in the West and in general is number one, heart disease. Second to that is cancer, and I think third is some other ailments, either related to accidents, homicide, or whatever, or it might be it might be third. Nonetheless, what you're about to witness with the help of the video that I'm going to react to, CEO, the man that's going to be interviewed is by the name of, I think his name is Simon Mills, a natural herbologist, one that deals with natural care and how to heal and deal with symptoms. Now, as I run this tape, let's keep in mind that this is something that, for most people don't understand, is not the most sexiest type of content being discussed in today's world. And the reason why, because health is not a priority to most people here in the West. It might assume it is, but overall, it is not a priority, personally. And I think more people in the West should take health a little seriously and really look at real alternate remedies instead of going to the white coats. There's a saying that one elder that has been not long gone now for the last 7 years said, use the only way or the only method or direction you take if you have to go to the hospital is you have to remove something out your body. And usually if you got punctured or any object that's forced into your body, that is the only time going under the knife or any form of surgical care is needed. But anything besides that, you should always look to alternate paths to reverse your disease. So now, no further ado, I did my short little introduction. Let us play the tape at hand. Watch closely, learn something, and get your pen and papers ready. Thank you and enjoy.
Simon Mills, you are a pioneer, by all accounts, in what is called complementary medicine, but you're also one of the most respected herbal practitioners in the world. You've been doing this for more than 50 years. I've actually never spoken to somebody that has a comprehensive understanding of herbal remedies and herbal medicine, so I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today. What is the mission you're on, and why do you think it's important?
I think my main mission is to do what I can to help people get stronger. I sometimes say that, the world is pretty rough out there. I can't do anything about the sea and the waves, but I can help you to build a better boat that can sit better in the water. And I think people relate to that if they were felt a bit stronger in themselves, they would be able to cope better with what life throws at them. I chose plants because people have always used plants as their primary source of medicine. People have always grown up with plants. They've evolved along with plants. And what I aim to do is to put the old wisdoms into some scientific framework and then make it fit with conventional norms of healthcare.
So, like always, if y'all recall throughout all history, plants. What's this? Plants, especially, and I think even the Bible itself said only herbs could heal the nation. As you know, that is an old model from old biblical time to even now. But here's the catch. It's only for the past almost nearly 200 years since European doctors decided to take what was natural remedies, herbs, plants, medicine, and convert it into something more lesser than in regards to healing people, for those that don't know. And the problem with this form of direction of healing, there are what is considered side effects. And normal side effects could be either detrimental or even more bad for the human body in the long term. Not the short term, but the long term. When you use alternative medicine to heal one thing, but it causes problems on the next. So I'm going to run this tape a little more and let's hear more of it. And also, I also have links if you join Discord of alternate ways to heal yourself. Not by Mr. Sam himself. I know he has IG. I'll probably post it in the special links of the other channel. But let's go.
You were a board member of the British Herbal Medicine Association. You're the first chair of the Council for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, launched in Parliament by former Prime Minister Alec Douglas Home. You led a major European Commission project on herbal medicine involving over 20 centres across Europe. You were the secretary of the European Scientific Cooperative on
Phytotherapy.
I was not able to say that word.
Which is the polite way of saying herbs.
Okay.
So it's phyto, plant, therapy.
I think when people think about herbal medicine and using plants as a form of medicine, they think of tribes and they think of, I don't know, sort of ancient Chinese traditions. And I think, the modern Westerner thinks of pills.
Yes.
When they think of medicine.
Yes.
What is it that we've lost? Is there like a lost wisdom?
Yes.
And how did that happen? And what is it we've lost?
When we lived in the countryside, when we lived close to nature, that was very much around us. And in every little community, there'd be someone, usually a woman, who would know their way around the plants and would help you out when you had an illness and a sickness. I'm not saying that there's a golden age, but when we moved into cities, we lost a lot. Apart from anything else, we were living on top of each other. We had to drink each other's water. There was a lot of new illnesses, sicknesses, pestilences, and so on that only came in cities. And that world, the herbs couldn't cut it. So we needed stronger stuff. So they started using minerals. They started using things that were poisons. And the original physician's job was to be the only guy who could handle medicines that other people would not be safe to use. And so you got your training to use these much more powerful medicines. And it was thought that the old plant things were too soft and gentle. And so they were generally discarded. And then you develop these medicines into pills because often they were powders anyway. And, then the pharmaceutical industry came in and branded and made proprietary materials from them. And that drifted a long way from just going down to a hedgerow, going into the garden, going into the kitchen and picking up remedies.
A lot of cultures around the world still use plants as their first form of medication for a variety.
All right, as a quick pause, is what he's saying factual? To be perfectly honest with you, in some case, yes and no. And the reason why, because at the time, if I recall, I think the first pharmacies started coming into existence in 1905. Matter of fact, let me double check. Because this is a long time since I did a lookup of this. What you said? Where's ChatGPT? Oh my goodness! I just deleted. How dumb! All right, I'm gonna go find in this particular. And I apologize, guys, because I had to find this. Let me see if the bot could check, and I should probably use some other ones. Pharmaceutical has been existing from thousands of years. Modern pharmaceutical industry is as we know it, began develop in the mid 19th century. So we say 1800s. Let's go down. Let's say it's a little farther than that, but we're going to start the ones we see start in the infant stage of commercialization. Alloperics and chemistry began commercial drug production in Europe and the United States. The world's oldest pharmaceutical company, Merck, was founded in 1668 in Darmstadt, Germany, as a alloperican, if I pronounce right. Then in 1830 through 1880, companies like Bayer, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Braut, Wellcomes shifted from chemical supply to medical research and manufactured pioneers standardized medicine. And the earlier regulation of pharmaceuticals started with the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. And the United States established quality of safety standards for drugs. The era also saw breakthroughs such as aspirin, 1898. That's how aspirin is. Aspirin is now 126 years old. Sulfite drugs, 1930, as penicillin, 1940, which transformed medicine into research driving fields. And I'm looking at this. These are just the acts developed from the timeline. Now, I'm going to let this run more, and I'm going to find the pharmaceutical companies that exist now that I can't remember off the back of my head. So let's keep this going. But this is good so far. Let's go. And like I said, this is Diary of a CEO. Fair use. Thank you.
Variety of different sort of illnesses and diseases, right?
They do, yes. I mean, most do. I mean, if you were Inuit in northern territories in Canada and Alaska, you would probably not have very many plants to choose from. But for most other people, they're surrounded by plants. That's their world.
I think, because I've not really grown up with the wisdom of plants and how they can, some of the illnesses that I have from a very young age. I'm taking cough syrup, I'm taking paracetamol when I have a headache, and all these kinds of pills and medicines. But plants were never really a part of that conversation. Yeah. And I guess that makes me think that they don't work, or
that's what most people would now think. And one of the points of this conversation now is to point you to ways in which they can, and to show you how you can figure that out within a minute or an hour. Most of these ones I'm going to be talking about have a pretty immediate effect. So we now think, if you take a herb, it may take months before anything happens. When I see a patient, my usual request to them is, can you call me tomorrow to let me know how it's going? Because things happen so fast. And if you're up for it, you can do a couple of taste tests and you can see why some of this stuff really is powerful.
What is it that you know from the 50 plus years of work that you've done working with plants as a form of medicine that the average person on the street doesn't know?
How close we are to having I think life is a miracle, and as I said in that early encounter, and we can realize the miracle within us if we just trust it. I've got a few guides to what I call health empowerment, things that you can do yourself at home just to begin to understand what's going on in here and to nourish it. And the plants are in my world, one of the most effective ways of supporting that inner miracle that we have, to nourish our health, to empower us. I sometimes think that, medicine is extraordinary. I mean, we now live with cancer. We used to die with it. Almost all the major illnesses of the past have now had treatments for. But, if you've got a chronic condition and you're still left with yourself and you're maybe not feeling so good in yourself, I sometimes think that a lot of medicine is a bit like fast food delivery. We have a meal brought in because it's convenient, but that also de-skills us. We've stopped learning how to cook even. I remember going to New York back in the 80s and surprised to find that so many apartments in New York didn't have kitchens because everyone went out to eat. And I thought, gosh, you're losing all those skills of making food and enjoying it and sitting it down over a table. I think medicine, we use far too many antibiotics. We use, these PPI things called omeprazole for our acid reflux, the most widely prescribed drug in this country, and I think US also, mostly unnecessary. we use a lot of anti-inflammatories just because it's sore, without asking why is it sore and why are we suppressing one of our body's main defenses, because inflammation is a defense. So these are things that you learn as you get into this world, that a lot of what we think are problems are solutions waiting for support.
Because I think most people would think that is medicine and
that is a food.
That's food.
Yes, well, you're right.
Medicine, food.
Yeah, you're quite right. That's medicine, that's a food. What I'm saying is that there's a spectrum. And we may talk about that raspberry because it's red, and we might talk about the broccoli because it's green, and there's oranges, colours there. All of these colours actually have properties that are actually quite valuable properties for our circulatory health, for our gut health, our brain health. And the more the science is looking at it, the more amazing it's looking. These things have medicinal properties.
So you're saying that this is medicine as well?
Yes.
Not
Let
just
food
this.
be thy medicine is what old Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago.
Is it?
Yes, Hippocrates said it best, and I remember saying when Dr. Saber said it best too about hypocrisies and medicine. Let's keep in mind that what the man has said about losing the basic skills of survival, cooking, how to prepare meals, how to prepare a dish, how to wash and prepare vegetables to consume. That is a skill, like any life skill, that you have to train yourself to do and learn. And what's happened in society, for those that don't know, when you don't utilize it atrophies attributes and it becomes useless to you over time. You have to retrain yourself to know how to do certain things again. And the thing, Mr. I don't want to butcher the man's name. Check out his name right. I should say his name properly. Mr. Mills, as referred to, is when you go out and eat, it's too convenient for one to just go out there and eat, personally, which I agree. And now it's becoming even more laser with the introduction of what is considered DoorDash. And what has happened, and this is what I've discovered, because I'm not a person that really orders out to eat. What I've learned from people, from having conversations, right, is certain men, and we could say women, but generally we'll say women for a sake of conversation, right? A person will stop going out to eat, and they'll stay home most of the day or wherever, and then order their food, and they come home and eat it because they deliver the food, right? One of the consequences of doing that, you're going to put on weight, and not just any weight. You're going to put a certain amount of weight, a lot of weight. Once you go the process of not even getting out and either getting your food by walking or driving and taking trips, now you're just sitting out in your regular place and just constantly consuming without any movement. To me, I think that's very dangerous, in my opinion. Very dangerous. That's very dangerous, in my opinion. But anyhow, let's continue on with this tape.
The Chinese that are particularly big on herbal medicines?
Yes. Almost anywhere. I mean, there's only 5 countries in the world that are not big on herbal medicine. And I'll tell you who they are, and you can see if you can draw your own conclusions. UK is 1, US is the 2nd, Canada is the 3rd, Australia and New Zealand. Now, can you think of something that combines them all together?
Yeah,
they're originally white English-speaking countries. If you go across to France, the channel here, go to any pharmacy, most of the medicine stocks on the pharmacy are herbal. If you go to some parts of Germany, you have to sit a herbal exam to get your license. And further east, in the old Soviet bloc where they couldn't afford the pharmaceutical industry, they had homegrown, primarily plant-based medicines much more widely. Going to Asia, it's the majority by far. And doctors and people working with plants and acupuncture in China work together without thinking about it. and many doctors use plants in their as their medicines.
Yeah, how different, because I've never really spent a significant amount of time in China, how different is the perception of herbal medicines there than it is out on the streets of London?
They don't think twice about it. It's what they grow up with. They, like a lot of people, we would say regretfully, do seem to want to do more things like the West does. So they adopt more Western habits, and as soon as you earn a bit of money, you tend to adopt more Western lifestyles and think that the herbal things for your parents and grandparents. So there's still that trend even in Asia, but they start from a much broader base of experience.
Why should anyone care? You know, I have ibuprofen at home. I have medicine that I can have in the cupboard. I have, you know, cough syrups if I get sick. If I get the flu, I have some flu pills that I brought from the pharmacy. Why should anyone care about what we're going to talk about today?
I suppose the answer is in my practice. So I see patients 3 sessions a week. And these are people, most of them have been around the block. They've had treatments for their conditions, sometimes for many years. They're often living with chronic complex conditions, and they're sore, they're tired, their energy's gone. You know, they've been told that we can't just keep taking the pills. You know, we've done all the tests, there's nothing else we can do. Time and time again, that's when the cookie crumbles. Because then you realize the ibuprofen and the quick pills ain't doing it anymore. There's a bigger health need that needs somehow fixing. And that's when they come to me as a practitioner. And I give them things that they can see improving their health, their sleep, their eating, their whatever it is that's not, their energy levels, whatever it is that's not playing properly. I see myself as a fine-tuning or upping the performance. When someone comes to me and they say, I've got whatever it is, arthritis or skin disease or whatever, I will politely take all the notes down, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in where that came from. What is the misbehavior? What is the poor performance that explains why all this happened? And often you find they had pneumonia at the age of 3, or they had glandular fever at the age of 15 or 16, and things took a turn then, and you can see the trail. And often what I'm doing is going backwards and fixing things that weren't fixed back a long time ago. Working on digestion particularly, because that's where we work. Kidney function, liver function, you know, circulation, you know, up to the brain where we're dealing in that area. So we're looking at the performance of the body, and it's only when it doesn't behave that you notice the need to doing it.
So there you have why it's necessity, because these regular allopathic medicines, and don't forget, guys, I'm gonna tell you the oldest pharmacies in a second, in a minute, maybe later down the line, is because your body is adapted to these natural remedies. I'm sorry, these artificial remedies in regards to drugs, like the pill, the cough syrup, the things that you can get access in your regular pharmaceutical store, or any store in general that sells these things. Your body creates an adaptation of these things. And what happens when the body adapts, it needs some much stronger for a greater push, so your body absorb it and use what's necessary. Now, to people that don't know, the human body is designed to adapt to any situation, any environment. That also applies to medicine. Now, anybody that have loved ones, or you yourself, if you experience it firsthand, that you take a certain medication, right? And after a while, you take it for a period of time, even go as far as abuse the medication, and then you find yourself taking much more of a stronger dose. Now, for me, I really came across this because I tried to keep myself as best possible, and there's still a long way to go, because nothing's considered perfect when you're trying to live in a very Western society, which the environment is toxic, the food is very toxic, everything else, even medicine, is not good. All this, your body is constantly at war with the environment in regards to always fighting to get well or protect itself. And with this, the danger of this is for people that don't know. Your body has to do what's necessary to shield itself from all these things that I mentioned before. And what happens with the shielding, the body eventually cracks and the body shuts down, and then you go as far as could cause your demise. So with natural medicine, like Mr. Simon Mills has said it, he's there to really not only heal, but reverse, if possible, your ailments, which don't cause too much problems, even though it cause too much side effects. So let's continue playing. I'm going to find the name of the oldest pharmacy while this is running. Let's go.
How many patients have you seen in your career, do you think? Thousands of patients?
I would say upwards of 10,000 each for an hour or so at a time to start with, so we get deep into the story and then rolling on. At any one time, I've got 200 running, I'm actively treating, and a couple hundred.
And one of the range of illnesses or conditions that those patients have had, and when you think about the most remarkable or most interesting case studies, the most reliable case studies that you have, what are the conditions that are at the center of those case studies?
Have you got a medical encyclopedia anywhere?
I'm going to write down the key ones.
No. I mean, it's literally, I don't know if I've seen everything in the medical encyclopedia, but I've seen most things. I mean, literally everything comes in, because mostly it's chronic anyway when they come and see me. And it can be anything. I mean, about a quarter of my patients are living with cancer. So that's one big group. I'm not treating the cancer. I'm helping them to live better with whatever it is they're dealing with. About another, at least a third, a bit more, living with chronic inflammatory disease, autoimmune diseases, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, things that are more complicated than you can shake a stick at. And again, we're not dealing with the end result. We're looking at what may be leading up to that and seeing if we can improve underlying functions. But literally anything can come by.
Is there particular case studies of patients that you've worked with that stand out to you, that you're most proud of, or that were eureka moments in your own sort of journey?
Most of my stories are like journeys. So you see little steps, and you're with somebody often for a long time, and you just see changes in the way that they change over the weeks and months. So, to say I've got an instant eureka moment, I've pulled together a few stories just knowing I was going to come to them, and just they're a motley mix. And in fact, I made notes because it's sometimes better to remind myself of the sort of things I did, because each of these patients will walk out with 5 or 6 or 8 different plants, and the reason I put them together is because they have a unique story. So probably the one with the most complex one is someone, all the names have changed, by the way, someone called Heather, who's 65, and she had a really severe complex condition called erythema multiforme, which is a complex skin disease that's really distressing, very upsetting. What we know about it is that it's linked possibly to other infections. So we actually spotted Mycoplasma pneumoniae is likely implicated. She had previously had a lot of lung damage. In her youth, she had early pneumonia, and she was diagnosed with a chronic obstructive pulmonary thing, bronchiectasis as it happened. Then she got COVID badly, and most of her trouble started after that. She also had vitamin B12 deficiency, pernicious anemia we call it, which is an autoimmune problem. The gut lining stops the vitamin B12 being absorbed. Those were in her background story. The lungs, because it was the earliest and probably the main factor, were first my focus, and the second was what was lining the stomach, because most inflammatory problems start down here. So I ended up giving her something that was a combination of remedies for the gut lining and for the lungs. And almost within a week or so, the itching of her skin subsided. I just happen to think that was the reason I remember it, because it's unusual to get such quick results in such a complex condition. But it's a reminder that if you can find the right button then quite big things can happen. I was lucky to find the right button. And progressively, over the ensuing few months, the skin problem disappeared to the extent that she was my dream patient. She said, I don't need your herbs anymore. That to me is my biggest reward, that they can move on. They don't need help anymore. It sticks in your mind because it was a hugely demanding condition that got better without, and had been going for a long time. It'd been going 3 or 4 years by the time she saw me. And it resolved very quickly with what seemed to be totally irrelevant treatments, but there was a rationale for them. Karen, 37, panic attacks, major anxiety problems. Heaven knows, there's a lot of that about. It turns out that when she was hospitalized when she was 20 with jaundice, which is a liver problem, all the processing, all the detox processes are in the liver. It's the gateway from the digestion. It handles emotions. It handles the immune system. It's an amazing.
Do y'all hear that? Do y'all hear that? Emotions, everything that is related to really what makes you are as a person, how you act and conduct yourself, even possible, all resides into that special organ, which is called the liver. We all know the liver is the detoxifier of the body. And I think, like most body components, one of 3 deadly sins that compromise one's health that could either cause severe illness to even lead to death are the heart, the kidneys, and the liver. And I remember particularly, and it's not on this channel, but it was on the other channel. I remember when I brought Terrence Miller on here personally, he talks about, focus on the gut and trying to remove the waste or anything that's obstructing these organs that conflict with your health. And a lot of people never say, so fixing liver will fix my problems? In some cases, yes, and possibly no. And the reason I say yes and no, because healing the body is not a one all fixed problem. It's a process of years of abuse of your body without your knowledge while you are in the health or decline health state you're in today. You made yourself the way it is because you do not know how the environment works and how your diet affects your everyday living. But now come across, let's say, this video here or any books in general about health and the body, you have to take the process to undergo reversing any potential illness you either have already or you might face in the future. It's always going to be your responsibility at the end of the day. Let that sink in. Now, I found the information about the oldest pharmacies. Let me read it out here to y'all. And one of the first few pharmacies that has been laid out in America, because we only talk about the West right now. Everywhere else is a little different. I'll do that later, depending on the time. The oldest forms of pharmacy drugstores here in America is what they call widely recognized as Carl Drugstore, originally Marshall Apothecary, founded in 1729 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That is a skin, if my map suits me right, 100, 200, 296 years ago. 296-year-old pharmacist, which is going to be 300 years in the next couple of years. So we could say this pharmacy that was first established in America is almost pushing 300 years. Second to that, if my math suits me right, is Walgreens that started in Chicago in 1901. And this is one of the largest, large national chain still operating today. And the third one and this is just what is I see here through not much research, but seen here, is Rite Aid, traced back from Thrifty Discount Center of 1962. That's a stand of 63 years. So I'm gonna let this keep going. And if you guys watching the stream, thank y'all for watching. Give this video a like. Please participate in the comment section or in the chat room by subscribing to the channel. Let me hear your thoughts, what you have faced, what illness you might have suffered, and all stuff. Let your voice be known. Let's go.
Organ is self-correcting, by the way, so it fixes itself very quickly if you give it the right nudge. She had jaundice, so immediately a little bell goes off and at an age when that could mean long-term liver damage, hepatitis. She's ended up with very little appetite. She feels full easily, gains weight easily, and often feeling nauseous, which is definitely a sign of liver distress still. Menstrual cycles very erratic. She had early COVID, again another big hammer blow, and the COVID was before her main symptoms of panic attacks set in. So I use that as an example of the way in which what goes on up here in the brain is linked with what goes on lower down in the gut. Interesting point. When we were living in caves, the best place to be was in the cave because outside was dangerous. The only thing that got you out, hunger. And when we look at the way in which the cells are, the machinery inside the cell, we find that the mechanisms managing anxiety are the same as the system managing appetites and food processing. So the idea of linking anxiety with metabolism is basic. This was an exact answer. So the mix of herbs that I gave her had nothing for the anxiety at all. It was all to do with metabolism. And so it included milk thistle, barberry, an oriental herb called bupleurum, artichoke leaf, and an Indian remedy called gymnema, which is called sugar destroyer, which reduces your hankering for sweet. First goal was to manage her sugar cravings, because that seemed to be a key part of what she was saying, and to improve her liver functions. This was very quick, and she became more settled over several weeks and months. Then the next thing that happened was her menstrual cycles became clearly where the trouble was, and she was most likely to be distressed around the period. So we shifted to include women's remedies, which were then included in the mix to help manage the hormonal ebb and flow around the menstrual cycle. And 3 months, which is the normal time for cycles to begin to turn, her cycles began to steady, and so did the rest of her symptoms. Nothing to do with anxiety, just dealing with these core functions. So there's a couple of examples of, how we approach things differently. If Karen had gone to most other practitioners, she would have had something for her nerves.
I do really want to talk about, you use the term women's herbs?
Women's, yeah.
Women's herbs. I do want to talk about that. And I do also want to talk about fertility in the menstrual cycle and things like PCOS, because I'm super interested in that, which might surprise some people. But obviously there's women in my life that struggle with those things. So I do want to get onto that. I think a second ago, you pointed at the stomach when you said that we treat down here.
Yes.
Is that really the place to start to understand?
Well, it's a place to start plants, because that's where they go.
So
To my young brother that's in his 30s, yes, everything that lies, all problems manifests in the gut. You have to get the gut at optimal efficiency. That means everything what you put down your throat into your belly should absorb and use what needs to be used and discard the rest. If it's not functioning like any motor efficiency, it's going to cause problems. So yes, everything lies in the gut. Everything starts in the gut. Your problems do start in the gut. Let's go.
Tell me, what do I need to know about this region, the stomach, the gut?
Wow.
In order to have a sort of foundational knowledge,
Yeah.
so that we can then start talking about ibuprofen, painkillers, fevers,
Yeah.
all these kinds of things.
Well, very simply, we think our intelligence is up here. We've got a brain. Yeah. as soon as you swallow something until it comes out the other end, we have no control over what goes on down there. Decisions are being made as the food traverses down the tube, and there's a long tube. It's about 20 feet of small intestine that has to go around, and then like another 2 or 3 feet of large intestine. It used to take about 18 hours to go through, and we now, because we're sedentary, would take longer. But all that time, intelligent decisions are being made by the digestive system, what to do with this, what to do with that. And the lining of the gut is full of sensors, receptors we call them, that are picking up chemical cues and responding. So as the food changes, as it's digested, as the bile from the liver comes in, it's picking off these signaling devices and switching on a whole series of metabolic, hormonal, all sorts of other functions, all controlled, major choreography going on here, you know, without us even knowing about it. And then, just when you thought this was wonderful, you add something called the microbiome. Now, when I was at school, and that was a long time ago when I was doing medical sciences, oh yeah, there's the bowel flora, and they help with digestion, vitamin K, one or two other things, you know, they might be quite useful. Now, the microbiome runs the show. And it's huge. You know, we thought we knew what the kidney did, we thought we knew what the heart did, we thought we knew what the brain did. We know they only do it because they work with the microbiome. It's running the show.
And the microbiome is the billions of bugs in our gut.
Trillions. We've got more of those little critters than we have of our own cells, so much more. So they are huge. They've got about 100 times as much genetic capacity as we do.
We've got more bugs in our gut than cells.
Yes.
So we're basically...
We're walking gut bags, yes.
We're walking bacteria.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more bacteria than there are us. I mean, it's a bit of a gobsmacking thought, and you know, obviously people want. No. I mean, the bugs will keep them there. One of the big issues of the day are antibiotics, which we know are becoming a serious health issue now. You know, the World Health Organization and others say very seriously that antibiotic resistance, you know, antimicrobial resistance, as they call it, is the biggest threat we have. Soon, going into a hospital and getting an operation will be a real risk because hospital-borne infections are increasingly resistant to antibiotics. You know, we're piling them in to us, but also to the animals that we grow. A lot of them are full of antibiotics, and that means that the diversity of the microbiome is being reduced. We're losing, we call that biodiversity. There's a biodiversity issue in here. But even with the diminished flora that we have, they still pretty much run the show. And a lot of the fruits and vegetables, particularly the ones with colours in them, actually feed those guys down there and help them to perform better. And one good reason to, as we say, eat the rainbow, just get those colours in. But yes, I mean, as you can see, if I start talking about the gut, I'm not going to stop for the next month.
On that point of antibiotics, the mechanism is that they kind of kill bacteria, right? So they're killing good bacteria as well in the process often.
They have different range depending on the antibiotic, but yes, they will be cutting a swathe through your gut flora for sure, some more than others. I mean, the point about antibiotics, and we did a big project with this, ironically, just before COVID, when I was working with Pucker, the herb tea people. We put a campaign together to find natural approaches to managing antibiotics or reduce the use of them. Antibiotics are useless for anything viral. They don't do anything for a virus. But unfortunately, people with viral problems will still be given antibiotics.
Did y'all hear that? Now, I know most people don't make it this far into the videotape. A lot of people fight. You might hear people complain if they leave a comment in the stream about you need antibiotics to fight viruses. What's this dude talking about? He don't know what he's talking about. I'd rather you sit down, absorb the information, take a learned lesson, understand why he's saying this. Because you got to understand the business of the pharmaceutical and the medical establishment, industry complex, right? It's all purpose is to what? Make money. And not make little money. They're here to make big money in the billions, for those that don't know. And if you're watching, please hit the like button. You hear the notion that they have not even solved for the common cold yet, much less correct any of the disease. And if they're not correct, not even the simplest or harsh disease, what is your purpose beyond here? Your purpose now is to take your money, keep taking your money month in, year in, until your body atrophies and can no longer, make use of your drugs or any form of procedures you do on the body in regards to fixing the problem, and eventually you die prematurely. So what one must do, you're going to have to find an alternate route to correct your disorder, your health chronic illnesses. That is probably the only solution. So I'm going to continue on about these antibiotics because that's very important. Because I know antibiotics, as it states, and what I know does not work in generally, because if you creating something to combat something, we know it's not really working at all. At all. Let's continue.
Mainly by a harassed doctor who just, because they said, give me something, doc. For viruses, mostly you just have to wait for the body to get rid of it. But giving an antibiotic is actually of no use at all. You don't take my word for it. Everyone knows this. And you get NHS, in this country, posters saying antibiotics are no good for viruses. Please don't ask your doctor for them. So for many of these things, colds and respiratory problems, for example, there are many spices. I mean, some of the things on that plate there are particularly good for colds and viruses up here. And so we put that all together in the package and said, we can encourage people not to ask the doc for an antibiotic and use some of these home, easy, free, or sometimes treatments to use instead of the antibiotic.
When you say antibiotics are the most urgent health issue of the moment, I want to fully understand why you think it's so urgent, because we're going to develop a resistance, which means that we're more susceptible to disease.
It's already happening, and it's not me that's saying this. These are the guys who look after our healthcare for us, like the World Health Organization, who are really getting close to panic about this issue, because already the number of people dying from antibiotic resistance infections is beginning to rise dramatically. And new antibiotics, unfortunately, there's less financial incentive to develop them because they're often handed out free in various countries, so you don't get the margins back. And the pipeline of new antibiotics is not good. So all you need to do is check on the World Health Organization to get the chapter and verse on that. It's actually quite frightening.
I'm on the World Health Organization site now, and I found a definition of antibiotic resistance. It's when bacteria stops responding to antibiotics and is mainly caused by overusing or misusing antibiotics. In 2022, US doctors gave out about 236 million US doctors gave out 236 million antibiotic prescriptions, roughly 7 prescriptions for every 10 people. Studies show that at least roughly 30% of antibiotic prescriptions in the US aren't needed, especially in places like doctors' offices and emergency rooms. In 2020, about 30 million antibiotic prescriptions were given out in the UK. Children aged 0 to 14 made up 3.6 million of those. And in 2023, the World Health Organization declared antibiotic resistance one of the top global health threats and estimated that it is responsible for 1.27 million global deaths in 2019 and contributed to almost 5 million deaths.
That was 2019. I can tell you that the figures have risen dramatically since then. So that's what people think. And just on a personal basis, you go and you need an operation, and you know that that's going to involve exposure to hospital infections, which is one of the most serious of them, the ones in the average hospital. There's some of the most lethal ones there. Increasingly, that is going to be a risk that you get something that you can't treat.
You're not saying don't take antibiotics.
No, I'm saying take them carefully. Use them when you need them and not otherwise. And again, it's not me saying this, is most responsible doctors would wish that their patients wouldn't keep asking for them.
So you hear that? You must take them responsibly. Don't abuse antibiotics. But we all know in the West, we like to abuse a lot of things. We don't take them as, all right, you take them when it's needed and you're supposed to stop. We take it like any other drug. And I think we can go as far as they made it addictive for you to keep taking these things. For those that know. So like I said, like any drug you take, your body adapts, gets used to it, and it needs something stronger. Antibiotics are no different. Let's continue.
So there's sort of three things that I've been able to ascertain as risks of misuse or overuse or inappropriate use of antibiotics, which is the impact on the gut microbiome, that you're contributing to the rise in antibiotic resistance, and
those are the main things.
I guess even with the diseases you get, you'll be slower to heal because you're less, if you've got that resistance.
That is one of the things that we do see, particularly those who are long-term ill, that they lose some of their healing capacity. And that's so much of the work I do is to aim to put some of that right.
And there's links to colorectal cancers?
Yeah. Well, that's it, because we're talking about the microbiome, you see. So those are the cancers in the lower gut. And we know that the microbiome is a major factor in how well the gut is. So things like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis and cancer of the bowel, very closely linked to the state of the microbiome.
Okay. So are there alternatives on this table or in the world of plants to antibiotics that I should maybe also consider, instead of just jumping straight to antibiotics for everything that I experience?
Yes. If you've got a serious gut or other infection, you may need the antibiotic. So let's put that straight away. But if you've got a cold, flu, virus, a viral problem, particularly the airways, antibiotics will have no use at all, and B, as we just said, they just add to the risk of more. Because every time you take an antibiotic, you're growing a small population of the species of bacteria that's affected who are resistant to that. It's natural selection. Though you have 1,000 little bacteria, that's a small amount by their terms, and you kill 999 of them, the one that survives will then become 2 in 20 minutes and 4 in 40 minutes and suddenly become a new population. And, I'd duck that bullet. And so that group of bacteria will already be resistant. So we're creating resistance every time we use an antibiotic. So let's try and doing something else, shall we? So let's say you've got a cold. You're feeling the cold. It's got a good name, by the way. So
Now, this one's very important, guys. Listen carefully. Listen very carefully. Let's go.
Cold is one of the things you feel when you've got a cold. And that's interesting because in former times, we didn't have tests, we didn't have laboratories, we didn't have paramedics, we didn't have people poking things in you. All we could know is what it felt like. And when you've got a cold, you often feel cold and you feel chills and you want to wrap up and you want hot water or you want to have a hot bath. All that in the old language meant that you were cold. And what you needed to do was to heat up. Now, you take this fella. This is ginger. It's grown widely around the world. In its original Asian form, it was made extinct around the time of the Romans. So popular was it. And ever since.
Ginger. Oh, ooh, this is a very important. Ginger is very beneficial. Very beneficial. I got to hear this.
All the ginger since of this species has got to be going from rootstock because it no longer seeds itself. So this has been the most valuable natural commodity ever. In its dried form, worth more than its weight in gold. And, you know, the reason why all those Europeans ended up in Asia, running India and the Dutch and Indonesia and so on, is because that's where these things came from. That's where the spices came from. And so we decided, you know, like good capitalists, to go and control the business. So ginger became very popular over here because we don't have nothing like it over here. The nearest thing we got is horseradish, which I promise you is no substitute for this. So how do we use this? We've got a knob of ginger here about the size of your thumb. That's about a good dose. You grate it, fresh ginger, into a mug.
Can you do that for me?
We've got a grater.
I've got a grater there for you.
So we've got here a piece of ginger, as I say, about the size of your thumb. The thumb's a good measure because it's your measure. So if you're a small person, you'll have a small thumb. But I'm a bigger person, so I'm going to use... And you literally, it's making a bit of a mess here, but when you're doing this at home, you don't mind a bit of mess. So you're literally grating, and it grates nicely, doesn't it, into a mug. And let's say that was the whole thumb. I don't want to take up too much time on this. And then the one thing that works brilliantly with ginger is cinnamon. Now, this is cinnamon you buy in any shop. It comes in different forms. There's one from China called cassia, which looks like one big curled bark.
Yeah.
If you look at this one, you'll see that it's tightly wrapped with lots of little filaments in it.
Yep.
That's the one you go for. It's more aromatic, and you either grate that with, if you've got a spice mill, or you take a teaspoon of it. Let's say that's a teaspoonful, and you put that in your mug.
So that's ginger and cinnamon.
Ginger and cinnamon, that's it. Then you add your hot water. There. You're going for real, right?
Yeah, for the real one.
Oh, good on you. At this point, a sieve is useful.
Why? What for?
Because it's full of
bits.
And then let's say this is a nice Japanese green tea mug, but let's say this is your mug, and we'll pour a little bit in there. You see all the stuff that you leave behind?
Ah, yeah. Ah, okay.
And if you don't mind sharing a mug.
So what's in here? This is...
Just ginger and cinnamon.
Just ginger and cinnamon.
It's fairly weak.
Oh, it is nice, though.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is nice.
Now, can you feel it warming already?
Yes, straight away.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah. Now, you see what's happening there is that ginger is an example of a group of remedies, which includes turmeric, by the way, and that's the other root there.
Oh, this
that's
one here.
turmeric. It's normally seen in a yellow powder. We might talk about that later. Mm. And black pepper and chilies. We've got a chili here, which when you take them, you think you're burning your mouth, don't you? The interesting thing is that there's no burning. You can actually have full Madras level chili, and no harm will be done to your lining because there's no burning going on. What you're doing is you're stimulating the pain fibers. So you've got pain fibers all the way through the lining of the mouth. When you take a hot thing like ginger, it's stimulating the pain fibers, and immediately there's what we call a reflex response, which opens up the blood vessels. It's called hyperemia, more blood. And the vessels lining these mucosa, the ones that you just swallowed and including a little bit up in the nasal passages, are opening up. The mucus cells producing mucus will loosen up, and you get more runny mucus, which is helping to flush through the grot on the mucosa. And the main thing you feel is the warmth. Mm-hmm. And if you're dealing with something down here in the lungs, you'll actually start bringing up more gunk up the airways. There's a natural escalator that we use the body uses to get stuff out of the lungs. Mm-hmm. That's stimulated. And the mixture of cinnamon and ginger was created, I think, in heaven. I mean, I think there's such a natural complement, and anybody can do that. And the point about it is that it's warming, and in the old days, that was the key thing. Didn't matter if you had a headache or a joint pain or a menstrual cramp. If you wanted to put a hot water bottle on it or heat it up, then that was a cold problem. And putting a heating medicine would begin to make a difference. So you can use the same thing if you have a headache and you want to put a hot pack on it, if you've got a menstrual cramp and you want to put a hot water bottle on it, if you've got a joint pain and you want to put a heating liniment on it, you can use the same thing.
Ginger with
just
cinnamon.
because it's heating. And that's simple old medicine.
There you go. So, in regards, like you said, the pains, especially ginger and cinnamon, and he also showed the pepper. But like I said, you go back to replay of this. That's just a simple old home remedy for treating those type of pains. And as y'all know, the pepper, and that's just a regular red pepper. I think chili pepper, very hot. So imagine now if you, instead using chili pepper, use cayenne pepper. Matter of fact, it makes me think I should probably buy some with pepper. Now I think about it. Anyhow, let's keep going.
So when you're experiencing different types of pain or a cold, then cinnamon and ginger are good. I think my cough.
Well, only if it responds to heat. Now, if you want to put an ice pack on, I mean, the old doctors, when someone came with a migraine, would say, tell me, would you prefer a hot pack or an ice pack for your migraine? And migraine sufferers generally split 70-30, preferring heat to 70, but a third of people with migraines actually want a cold pack. You don't use ginger for that. You use cooling remedies, which we might come on to later.
Okay. My girlfriend, she drinks ginger tea all the time, almost every day.
Yeah, she likes the heat.
She likes the heat.
Yeah.
She drinks it before bed as well.
Can help with sleep if that's the way it goes. I mean, people are different. And there are some people who can't take ginger at all because their stomach objects, or because it, literally heats them up too much. They get stimulated by it. But that's where the individuality comes in.
Okay, so any condition where I might be looking for heat, ginger and cinnamon.
First place to go.
First place to go.
Yeah, you could, if you wanted to be Tex-Mex, you can take the chilies.
As well.
We think of them as a much more extreme version of the heating. And, remind ourselves, it was only when the Europeans discovered Americas that chilies became used over here. Can you imagine an Italian meal without tomatoes and chilies? But in the old days, there were none of those because they all came from America. But yeah, chilies were the American equivalent of ginger, used for the same purpose.
So if someone comes to you and they say, Simon, when should I use chilies as a form of medication? What would you say?
First of all, I don't know yet. And, if I'm dealing with someone at a distance, online or on the phone or something, and they say, what should I try? I said, the first thing to do is you figure it out. You could start with herbal teas. You aren't, are you?
I'm going to drop it into here. Is that a bad idea?
Yeah, no, go for it. But you should notice that should be quite a hot one. I will suggest that they start with herbal teas, because herbal teas are a very low dose, but they'll allow you to figure out what suits you. And you can divide, as I was hinting at earlier, old medicines were often divided into those that were more warming, that we would now call stimulating circulation, and more cooling, which we would now translate as stimulating digestion. And depending on which of those you prefer would really give me a clue. So if you were looking at warming remedies, it could be ginger tea, it could be fennel tea. That's a warming remedy, or it could be cinnamon, or any of the spices. Cardamom is one of my favorites, by the way. I use cardamom. This is the cardamom pods inside the little black seeds. Absolutely lovely taste. Do you know cardamom? Have you tried it?
Not really, no.
Oh, have a bite of that.
Do I just bite the seed?
Yeah, just bite into it. You don't just get a hint of the taste. In many parts of the Mideast, cardamom is one of the main flavors, things like coffee and so on.
Reminds me of I was going to say Indian food that I've had.
Yes, used a lot in India. And in China, it's a convalescent tonic, so they use it when people are building up their digestion after being ill for a long time. They will often use cardamom. It's one of my favorite remedies for that. When people really run low, their digestion isn't functioning. It was appeared in one or two of these stories I've got here, because I prefer that to most of the other spices when I need warming, as I said before, but also sustaining and nourishing. So,
as you can see, that's the picture of the cardamom seed. Like anything, is electoral cardamom, native to India, like you said, Syrica, now grown across Asia, especially Guatemala and India. It belongs to the ginger family. That's the family it belongs to. It's a Zingbercase, I think. Flavors: warm, spicy, sweet, and aromatic. A mix of mint, lemon, and smoke. Used for culinary use in curries, tea, like chi, desserts and coffee, especially in Middle Eastern and Indian cuisines. Medicinal, traditional use to aid in digestion, freshening breaths, relieve nausea, support respiratory health, and acts as a mild detoxifier. Interesting. Must get cardamom. Must get. Let's see. It's Queen of Spices. And black pepper, as you know, is King of Spices. All right, let's keep going.
You ask them, do you prefer teas that are warming, or would you like something more cooling? And now, one of the most cooling remedies that people know about is this, which is mint. That's spearmint. The best one is peppermint.
Ooh.
It's got a lovely smell, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That has always been thought of as cooling. And it's a simple test. Would you prefer ginger or peppermint tea? And already you're beginning to narrow things down a bit. The main cooling remedies throughout history, from the very beginning, and in every part of the world, you'll find them saying exactly the same thing. The main cooling remedies, so-called, are the bitters. And they taste rarely bitter.
When you say cooling, you mean I feel hot, so I want something to cool me down.
That's right.
And there's certain conditions where I'll feel hot.
Fever.
And
they were often used to manage fever. Okay. And you remember when we were young, we were told, if you've had a big meal, don't go swimming.
Oh.
You weren't told that.
I can't swim, so
no, there you go.
The advice
but that was one of the things that some of us in my generation, at least, were always remembered. We were told, if you've got a big meal, it's not a good idea to go swim, because the blood's moving into the digestion, and you won't get as much as you want where you need it in the limbs. And that's it's true. When you're digesting, a lot of blood investment, shall we call it, is going into the digestive system, because there's a lot of work needed to break down this food, turn it into something useful. It is an investment. You put a lot in, get much more out. But what it means is that digestion is all about, I'm just being a bit loose here with the language, but it's not about language. It's like bringing blood into the core. When you've got a fever, the blood's all charging around and your body temperature's going up, which is great, because fever actually is a defense measure. When our body temperature rises by a couple of degrees, our white blood cells, the ones that are doing the legwork, 2 or 3 times as active. So fever is what the body uses when it needs to bring out the big guys, bring out the fight. there's a slight design problem. It's almost as though, the creator put a purposeful fault in the system, because a lot of fever comes from the gut. They get gut infections. That's one of the main places. And at that moment, all the blood's going out here, and you want more of it going in, more digestion, if you like. So when you take a bitter, you're actually triggering taste buds up here.
A bitter?
A bitter, something that tastes bitter.
Are there any plants that are bitter?
Yeah, bitter plants are very common and were highly valued in the old world. In our times, probably the most bitter plant that people used in European terms was something called wormwood. Now, you may not be familiar with that word, but the French for wormwood is vermouth. And you think of the use of a drink before a meal. Mm-hmm. The idea was they used to call it an aperitif, something that stimulated your appetite. Mm. So they would use bitters to improve your appetite, and a low level of wormwood would be one of them. Dandelion and burdock are two other bitters, which we now have as a soft drink, particularly in America. And we know that bitters do switch on the appetite, so we sometimes use them when appetite is poor. And, there's all sorts of reasons why you've got a low appetite, but bitters can really help, particularly if you're recovering from an illness. They can help with getting the digestion juices flowing and the appetite up.
Because they bring blood to the digestive system.
Well, they do all sorts of things, actually. When you switch on these receptors in the mouth, these taste buds, they're hardwired and they produce hormones down here in the stomach that switch on all sorts of things and effectively increase digestive activity, which involves more blood coming into the area. So, yes. Let's imagine you're living in some part of, the desert area in the Middle East. You're eating a sheep or something that hasn't seen a refrigerator and is a bit dodgy, and you think after a meal, you turn to something easily available in that part of the world. It's a plant called Cafea arabica. We call it coffee. You ground the coffee into a sludge at the bottom, pour a bit of hot water, and drink that straight. That's a bitter. So if you ever had an espresso without sugar, that's a bitter. Okay? And that was used as a digestive. In other words, after you're eating, it would help cope with some pretty rough food. So bitters were always seen to be good for your digestion and appetite. And in fever, that actually meant lowering your body temperature. And we can see that happening. It means that some of the anger out here just gets sublimated into digestion. So that was where the bitters got their cooling reputation. And we can now laugh at this is all medieval nonsense. But the point that I keep coming back to when I'm seeing patients, I start with that blank sheet of paper. It's because the only test of what these do to you is to take it. And as you notice with your ginger and cinnamon, you don't need long. You've got it there straight up. And, if I give a bitter to somebody and, someone is really bitter, they will know within an hour or so what effect it's having.
On this point of antibiotics, I've heard you talk about vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc as a...
Now, before we move on to the more important part of vitamin D and zinc, and then the essential importance for your body, especially for your body, make sure you guys like the stream. If you're not subscribed to the Zero Energy channel, wait for it. Subscribe now to the Zero Energy channel. We're gonna try to get this falling up a little bit. Try normally a short goal, see if we can get to 400 to 500, maybe by next month or two, depending. But overall, we want to grow this channel steadily and probably effectively as possible. So please, guys, subscribe to the channel. All right, man, what is this? What the hell just happened? Yeah, I didn't put it here. All right, let's keep going.
Potential alternative to jumping straight from?
Not straight alternative, but in improving your natural resistance, particularly to viruses and such like, then there is evidence for both vitamin D and vitamin C, but also zinc as backups in supplement form, that do seem to add to your resilience in the face of infections.
I'm quite concerned because, I've got dark skin, and in the weather that we live in here in the UK, when I am in the UK, I worry that I won't get enough vitamin D. Are these quote unquote supplements important, do you think? What are the supplements that you think are imperative?
None. Not for everybody, but there are certain situations. I think vitamin D is a good one, and it's not just people with dark skin that have a vitamin D deficiency. It's pretty widespread in darker countries, if we can call our weather, and that we know where there's not enough sun. Vitamin D deficiency is quite widespread, and increasingly doctors do suggest you have vitamin D supplementation through the winter, particularly. Even just having a 15-minute outdoors with the sun will give you a fairly hefty amount.
Do you supplement?
Not myself. No, I don't. Haven't spotted a need. But that doesn't mean that I don't recommend supplements to people where there is a need.
And garlic? We've got garlic there. I was wondering if that has an antibiotic role.
Well, this is, garlic, what used to be called Russian penicillin, and after penicillin was invented, because some parts of the world, they use garlic instead of penicillin, which was hard to come by originally. And it was used in places like the First World War to avoid some of the French foot and other problems that soldiers would get in those lousy conditions. Garlic, when talking raw now, is a very powerful prebiotic. In other words, it helps the gut flora, the good guys down here in the microbiome. And there's evidence to show a lot of these other ones do as well, but garlic is particularly strong. And when I'm dealing with a disrupted gut flora, a microbiome, I will sometimes refer to raw garlic as a treatment. But you need to do it with a little care, because you don't want to lose too many friends.
Why? What's wrong with gut? Is it pungent?
It's the aroma you give out afterwards. So, your friends will be very polite, but they'll rather wish you hadn't. And some people find that it does upset, when they swallow. But I have a little trick, which I call the garlic intensive, which is when everything is down, the gut is in this state, you maybe got a lung infection or whatever, and there's a lot of need for, if you like, an antibiotic type of treatment. Raw garlic, what you do is, and for all sorts of reasons, the Friday evening is the best time to do this, because you've got the weekend ahead of you. You take one of those cloves. First of all, on that day, you haven't eaten so much, so you don't have so much on the way. Then you take one of these cloves, you peel it, chop it up, small pieces, and swallow it with water. You don't chew it, just chop it up and swallow with a little bit of water. And wait for half an hour, just to make sure that that's okay. Your stomach's okay to go ahead. If it is, take another clove, chop it up, swallow it. Another half hour later, take another clove. And if you start at 6 o'clock, by 10 o'clock in the evening, you've got 8 cloves inside you.
8. And what's that going to do?
Well, at this point, you usually go to bed, and I would suggest you go to bed alone at this point, because you're not very friendly at this point, because you're oozing garlic. The aroma of garlic is coming out of all your pores. Incidentally, it's also coming out of your lungs, and there was an old trick where you used to be able to, if you had enough garlic, breathe on a petri dish in a laboratory with various pathogens, and you could kill them just with your breath. The oil of garlic is a powerful antiseptic. But what it's doing in the lower digestion is, it seems the good guys down there quite like it. But the bad guys, in the old days we had garlic was, against the devil. And it looks as though the bad guys down there don't like garlic. So just doing that over a weekend can make a big difference to the good guys in the microbiome. And if you've got a low-level gut or lung infection, that can be really helpful. But that's, something you can do at home, but you don't want to do that too often. In fact, I would suggest that one garlic intensive is probably enough for most people.
So prebiotic effects, it has an antimicrobial properties, is it good for pain? You called it Russian penicillin, is it?
Yeah, well, it depends where the pain's coming from. But if your pain is a cough or a chest infection, yes, particularly good for chest infections. Some people do use it for arthritic problems. It will depend on what's causing the arthritis. It's very hard for me to say one of these things will do it for everybody. It won't. It will do it in certain situations. And what we learn when we're dealing with plants is that you're the boss. You find out for yourself. All people like me do is say, well, give this a try. This is worth trying. This is valuable. Why don't you give it a go?
How do you think about chronic pain? There's so many people living with a variety of different types of chronic pain. It affects 51.6 million people, I believe, just in the US alone. Yeah. And the most common forms of chronic pain are conditions such as arthritis or migraines or lower back pain or other types of nerve damage. Yeah. Roughly 75 to 85% of Americans will experience some form of back pain during their lives. When I think about this big array of plants that are in front of me and other plants, what is the first place to go in your mind if you're dealing with chronic pain?
It depends again where it is, but let's take joints and back. Where you've got a joint that's causing, and it's because it's inflamed. Yeah. So when you have an inflammation, you add itis to the name of the plant. So this is arthritis because it's an inflammation of the joint. You have cystitis, which is the bladder. You have bronchitis if it's the lungs, gastritis if it's the stomach. So itis tells us there's an inflammation. And mostly with arthritis, it's an inflammation. And briefly, it's because there's junk being dumped on the joint. The joints have got very poor circulation by design because, there's surfaces being pressed against each other. And so the tissue in the joint is cartilage, gristle if you're eating it, which is designed to survive with very poor circulation because, when you've got two things pressing it, there's not much room for blood in there. So if there is metabolic waste, let's call it junk, in the system, it's more likely to come out in these places where there's poor circulation. I sometimes think it's a bit like a U-bend under a basin. If there's any stuff in the sink, it's going to come deposit there. So I think of joints as a bit like a U-bend. Mm. So the first thing that people did with a joint pain, an inflammation of the joint, was to help to clean the joint, bring more blood into the area. And that's what the inflammation is doing. It hurts like billy-ho, but what it's doing is bringing more blood in by brute force to do what I was just saying. But if you were to put on a mustard plaster or a cayenne plaster,
a cayenne pepper plaster,
which you simply put on the outside, mm-hmm. and you can buy these in pharmacies and so on. That's called capsaicin, beg your pardon. It's a standard prescription dressing for a pain. What it does is it brings the blood in directly, and that means the inflammation doesn't have to do it. And the inflammation is sore, what you're doing isn't. So by definition, you're reducing the pain level. Mm-hmm. That's an example of using plants in a creative way, which people always did.
They used to do that back in the day?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, if you go to North America, the native populations would regularly use cayenne as their salve for bad joints. In Europe, it was mostly mustard. Then we're talking the yellow mustard, the one that's strong, used as a plaster over a joint. And if you've got arthritis in your fingers, and this is something anyone can...
Now, the arthritis portion, I got to pause here. Very problematic. I think it varies by your age, but I've noticed that most people that, depending if they have a serious injury, do develop arthritis over time. And if I can recall, I'm not sure if they have any creams or anything you take over the counter for that. I can't recall. But I think you take some cream, put on your joint. But usually arthritis can be a problem in the long run because when you keep moving your joints and you hear that, cracking or whatever, it can be a problem in the long run. But let me see what his suggestions of treating arthritis naturally.
You can do with, suffering the pain here, use a mustard bath. Put your fingers into a dilute warm solution of mustard, and it's amazing how quickly they ease up. Or you could put a plaster on a hip or whatever. People always did this.
Have you seen this work in
Yes.
your practice?
Oh, yes. And I often recommend it to patients and they keep reporting back. It really makes a difference.
I think I worry about lower back pain because I spend so long sitting down. And
I've got low back pain too.
Really?
And I didn't use herbs very much for that.
What did you do?
Well, there was a long story, but there was a very good West African combo called Osibisa, which I saw back in the day when I had really bad back. And the music got so into me that I loosened up and began to jive and dance around and realized that my back had gone, and it stayed gone for decades. It's just unlocked a knot. So that wasn't any herb, that wasn't any plant.
All right, so we will stop right here. Now, short solutions to remedies. Let me see if I got the store here. I should have it up here. Let me look for it. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm trying to find the store. No, I don't want that. Let me find out. I had it here earlier. That's weird. No, it's Game Pass. I don't want that. Let me I had it here, guys. Oh, you know I do. I go to this. Because I do want to share this. Let me pull it up. If I can find it. I think this is the one. This is the one. Yes. Yeah. Okay. What the hell is this? I don't know. Linktree. All right. Let me go back. It's giving me some stupid ass Linktree. Hold on. I'm gonna find that. Oh damn it! The website's gone. All right. Well, this is what I'm gonna do. If I do another follow up, I give you the web a simple. In fact, no, I could probably give you one website for those that don't want to go this route. I know it's kind of rough, but let me see. Yeah, why not? I'll give you the latest website. Cause look at hers is up and running. Everybody else is down. This is one of the websites you can go now. Let me exit this. This for those that want to go the natural path. And let me see if I can share this. Share this. Because I gotta stop this one right here. Okay. One website you guys could check out. And I'm going to lower this down. Actually, let me do this. that's pretty much it. If you like this stream and you like always want more of this, let me know in the comment section of this video. I might follow up to wrap this up because I think this is very important. The information the gentleman is laying out is very useful for ways of alternate health, and I think it's something that we should pay attention to personally. I mean, literally personally. So, like I said, I'm just here just sharing the information. Like I said, this is a good little broadcast here for now. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the Zero Inch channel. Make sure to follow through on upcoming videos, live streams on this channel. Thank y'all for watching. Until next time, take care.